Hello, and welcome to the Biohacking Podcast, Biohacking Beauty Podcast. My guest today is Misty Huckabey.
Huckabey, that's right.
And Misty, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to us today?
All right. So I'm actually a neuroscientist. I'm working on my master's degree. I'm also pre-med, so I'm very into medicine. But before that, I was into herbalism because I really liked how plants worked. That stemmed from my childhood. So I grew up in the Midwest in Missouri, the Ozark Mountains, on basically a lake. It was a resort town. There were beautiful hills. There were lots of plants and flowers. We would go bird watching, rock hunting. So I was very immersed in the earth.
Yeah.
Very grounded by that. And then as I grew up, I went to business school. Then I decided to pay for school. I was going to be an actress. So I started acting and modeling, and I think this is kind of how I built a platform. But the bigger that I built my platform, so I went overseas to Germany, Kosovo, Italy, and I did runway modeling there. And I started meeting more people, and I just fell back in love with people. That's
we can hear your birds in the background.
She's whistling. It's the most beautiful whistle.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with people and wanting to help people. And I fell in love with culture and the different cultures. And so then I switched, obviously, to medicine and neuroscience and working on our brain. I had a long conversation with my grandmother, who's my mentor. And I said, Grandma, I'm just having a hard time wanting to do psychology. I love how the brain works, but I want to help people make changes. And she said, she had the foresight to say, why don't you do neuroscience?
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because your grandma is from the Ozark Mountains. She really, you grew up, around her, and that was the environment you grew up around, right?
Yeah. So she was actually born during the Great Depression era. So it was like very much, we're going to save this Q-tip to clean something, it was very, we're going to reuse this jar, we were hunting for rocks and then we would tumble them to make them shiny, to just keep as little treasures. Those were our toys.
Wow.
So yeah, she raised me, and my parents were there, but I just always would cling to her and her knowledge. And she was the first person to say to me when I was younger, and now that I'm older, I see it was a way to kind of control a young one's mind, or not control it, but help me learn my own mindfulness. She would once say, be mindful of others, be mindful of your actions. But she told me once, she said, why don't you just think of nothing? And me as a kid, as a kid, I'm like, okay, I'll think of nothing. That's not hard. Doing it right now. And she said, no, did you, most people either see a black screen or a white screen, or they see the word nothing in their mind. What do you see? Do you truly see nothing? And I was stumped by this for a decade. I was a little girl when she did this exercise with me. And as I got older and more on my path, I would meditate without knowing it, because that's what I was doing. I was thinking of nothing. And sometimes when I would run, my mind would go on these journeys, and I would see like auras around people, because it was more like an apparition. So an apparition is something that comes before your mind. Aristotle talks about it a lot, and that we can't truly know things unless we are that thing. So to truly know something, you must embody it. And for me, that's immersing myself in it, which I very much do. I'm very extreme when I choose to learn something. And so I think I immersed myself in these different mindful practices for a long time. And it all started with an exercise my grandma did when I was little, and my need to, prove her right or prove her wrong, one, to make her proud that I could do this, and two, to prove her wrong when she said that I couldn't. So
Wow.
I was fascinated with this thought of nothingness.
You
What
know what
was
it,
it?
do you know what it reminds me kind of?
What?
I remember an old Osho lecture where he was talking about why did the Buddha call I think he called enlightenment the end of suffering,
Mm-hmm,
or nirvana the end of suffering.
mm-hmm,
And the reason he described it as the end of suffering is to live like an empty void for what it is, not to have your mind cling to something specific, but to just kind of illuminate what would be lacking in that aspect. So I don't know, it connects with what you're saying a little bit.
I agree 110%. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, it's the eightfold path, the way to end suffering. And what I'm learning now with my study in mindfulness. So I'm working with C-Care, which is a center for altruism, and it's at Stanford. And I'm taking a mindfulness course with them. And
Mm-hmm.
what I'm learning about mindfulness right now is that there is a suffering aspect to it, or not
Yes.
mindfulness, but compassion. Compassion is to work our way through suffering. Now, the only way that we can access compassion is through mindfulness. So mindfulness is our bridge for compassion,
Yes.
if that
And
makes sense. You
it does.
cannot be compassionate without having mindfulness.
Mm-hmm. So what I understand from what you're saying is, if we're not really aware, if we're not truly putting ourselves in that other person or other situation or whatever it is, if we're not really experiencing, being mindful and experiencing the other like they are ourselves, we wouldn't be able to be truly compassionate. We would still be doing something out of some kind of self-interest. We just for us to feel better or whatever it is.
Yes, that's true. I think that's an aspect of it. One thing that I always say is I think that manipulation, like the energetic quality of it, it's never going to work out because you have
Mm-hmm.
this expectation and you really want it to be met. And I always use the saying, the tighter you hold sand, the faster it falls. And so to
Yeah.
me, yeah, that's kind of that moment in mindfulness where you're just so mindfulness is just your thoughts are coming and they're going, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm angry, and that's just it. Like, I'm angry right now, or I'm excited right now, and that's it. Nothing is attached to it. It's just a state of being. And through that, mindfulness is how we can access compassion. So if you're in pain, compassion is when I want to alleviate that pain for you,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't cling to that feeling, right? Or else I'm going to be burned out. So as a parent
Yes.
or a caretaker, a friend, a partner, a coworker, anything, you're going to burn yourself out. So you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to help someone else. So I really think by not attaching to that pain, but alleviating the pain, I think that's the trick.
Uh-huh.
And studies actually show, I would have to pull up some of the actual stats, but I'm having compassion and having an altruistic or giving heart, specifically studies that have been done on giving, can reduce your chance of heart disease. It helps you live longer. There's
Mm-hmm.
studies that show that being compassionate and giving actually makes you more likable. So
Wow.
children who share more in school, for instance, they'll be more popular.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if that used to be true, because sometimes it would seem like, oh, bullies are popular. I don't know. But I think as a whole, the more that we talk about mindfulness and compassion, the more people are doing it and the cooler it's becoming.
Wow. That's that. First of all, even if it is only true, um, even if it's only a self-fulfilling prophecy, I'm on board.
Yeah.
I think it's a reinforcing loop, right? The more we talk about compassion and the more compassionate people there are, it's going to reinforce itself. And I think it's a good place to kind of state our agenda. So let's say someone's listening to this podcast for the first time. So I am a co-founder of a skincare company that's called Young Goose. And this skincare company is dealing, we call it good genes in a bottle. We're dealing with, we activate and support sirtuins, which is an anti-aging pathway, or they're also dubbed as the anti-aging genes that our creams kind of target. And when I started this company after over 10 years in entrepreneurship in beauty, it was very important to me to, one of my mission statements was to give as much value as I can to the end consumer, to the end user. When contemplating, when meditating on the amount of value I can give, it was very apparent that skincare is a truly just one component of skin health, and that overall health is really the important factor in skin health. When I mentioned good genes in a bottle before, it makes sense to people because when someone looks good in their 40s or 50s, normally they attribute it to good genes.
Yeah.
And it's true, but it is also true that the good genes that we're talking about are also the genes that direct you to be compassionate, to take care of your health, etc., etc., etc. So the idea of this podcast is to bring people exactly like you. You're kind of the poster child of people that we want to bring, to show the overall package, the holistic approach we need to take if we want the end result to be beautiful, glowing skin. We need to understand the journey goes through nurturing our mind and our body. And this is why I think we can have a 5 hour long conversation. We're going to try to contain it into 30 or 45 minutes, but I think it could go endlessly. So really, we can continue with your story, but a question that I had for you is, um, one of the things that is kind of in the headline of your website is building healthy minds.
Mhm.
What, how do you describe a healthy mind?
I think a healthy mind has a good perspective of their outer reality. Healthy mind, also sleep is the biggest thing. I mean, we are so overworked. Sleep is so important. If I'm tired, I sleep. I don't fight it.
Wow. I need to take that advice, but that would mean I would be sleeping a lot in front of people's faces. But
I know it's hard as an entrepreneur. I know it is. I mean, I have my hand in so many different hats at times, but I just say, if I can sleep tonight because I'm tired, I'm not going to get any more meaningful work done on this project until I sleep.
yes,
So,
yes, that's a very tight rope to walk, especially if you do take on as much as you, which is a lot. What are some of the projects? Obviously, we did mention that you're in pre-med, you're a pre-med student at the moment, you're a neuroscientist. You do you still do some modeling and some acting? Do you have time for that even?
no, I definitely don't have time for acting and
Yeah.
modeling. I wish
So
I
what?
did, but I don't. My main thing is my research and compassion.
Hmm.
I did used to work with an anti-aging lab. I've done deep brain stimulation, and my main focus right now is overall health. I have a nonprofit, so we kind of started the thought of ripples of kindness, and I
Hmm.
think you hinted on it, but it's so accurate. You also have to have self-compassion.
Yes.
So, and in that comes, I mean, people think that it's vanity, but it's not vanity. When I wake up and I take care of my face, I wash my face in the morning, I wash it at night, I wear my sunscreen, I'm doing these things for my outward appearance because it makes me feel good. And
Yes.
so I think that's important to do too. There's so many levels of taking care of yourself. If I don't have time to go to the gym and work out, some people are so hardcore about the gym time. I will say that's one place where I lack, maybe because I sleep so much.
Yeah.
But I'll go for a walk on the beach, or I'll do squats in my home, or I'll do yoga on my deck. So I'm still active every day, but these are
Yeah.
all things we have to think about in self-compassion. So I can't
Yeah.
be compassionate to you if I don't know it within myself. It's that idea of whenever you throw a rock into a pond, the ripples don't start outward and come in. The ripple starts with
Mhm.
you and it goes out.
Yeah, it reminds me, I'm blanking out on where I heard it, but it reminds me of some coaching, you know, lesson someone gave where they said that um, wherever you are in life, wherever you are, by the way, also in your goals, your personal goals, what you give to others, etc., only reflects what you believe you deserve. You cannot you cannot get or give or just fill in the blank more than what you believe you or others deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that there is something in investing your energy every day and something, whether it is your skincare, whether it is meditation, whether it is physical exercise, by making small choices and committing every day to something, you kind of build that self-esteem and self-worth in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a big part of progressing in that specific area, I feel like.
Yeah. I still, for some reason, I'm being pulled back to, I feel like for me, the thing that I always loved the most about myself, maybe it comes from being an actress, but it was really like an appearance thing for me, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, there's those sayings too, like you wake up and you get dressed for success. But for
Yeah.
me, it was just, and that doesn't make this correct, but there is a saying in psychology. It says, what is beautiful is also good. It's this bias that people have that they're going to listen to you if you have yourself put together. And if they find you beautiful or if they find you interesting, it doesn't only have to do with appearance. But unfortunately, it's a real bias that humans have. And so
Yes,
if you want people to take you serious, you wouldn't go to your board meeting, as you just, I guess, rolled out of bed.
that's correct. I think it is. I can ask you maybe. When I go to a meeting and I shave because I maybe every one of us has it, but I definitely have a part of my brain which is a slob that for everything I want to do tells me, oh, don't bother, you know. Um, so to me, the way I communicate with that part, I really look at it as respecting the other person, the other person for that matter, or people that I'm going to meet. And that is why I'm giving the extra effort to look good, to smell good, to make an effort to present myself well for that other person. So maybe that's a part of it. Maybe they feel it, right? If you look like you rolled out of bed. You
Well,
also tell them,
I think that's also mindful too. I mean, it seems like to me you're saying you're being mindful of what you think their expectations are, whether they have them or not, you're putting that out there.
yeah, that's 100% correct. So it starts with that, and I do think there are many aspects of it. Obviously, your physical appearance. It's also how prepared you are for whatever is going on, how on top of your things, awake you are, etc., etc. So taking care of yourself as far as sleep, as far as health, it all kind of ties up together, and then you can just make more of a difference in your and other people's lives.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. So let's talk. My biggest um, challenge as far as being an entrepreneur and taking care of myself, something that is almost like that sand that you're trying to hold tightly and runs faster away from you, is stress management. Because the more I feel like I want to give, the more value I attribute to what I'm doing, etc. Stress seems to be a built-in component of that. And again, something that I see from your work is that stress management is a big part of what you're doing. How do you have a lot of stress in your life? Because you do have a lot of life in your life. does stress appear there?
Yeah, I mean, I have a ton of stress. I think this is a very personal note, but I also take care of my siblings. I'm not a mother, but I know there are probably plenty of mothers and fathers out there, and just caretakers in general. I would call myself a caretaker. But just that aspect of having other lives to look after, or even owning a business, you know, I have
Mhm.
employees to think about. So um sorry, I lost my train of thought. So in stress management, I think when it comes in that you put yourself first, I'm like, okay, I need sleep, because if I don't have sleep, I'm not myself. I'm not going to answer a question or some issue that my staff might have in the appropriate way. If I'm moody, if I'm hungry, if I didn't feed myself, if I'm thinking about, oh, I should have taken my supplements, or even not, if you have coffee in the morning, or if you have green tea, or whatever you have, if you're thinking about, I should have had that, you're not going to be fully there. And if you're not fully there and you give the wrong answer, or you're kind of working in this autopilot where you're not really anchored to life, you're going to have to go back and you're going to have to fix that, right? It's like
Yes.
not doing dishes the right way the first time. Just
Yes.
do it the right way the first time. Get enough sleep, have your water, have your supplements, you know, center yourself, and then take care of your stress.
Yes. Do you have strategies to handle stress that you apply?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a few stress strategies. So I think for a lot of my stress, I let it take care of itself, which are those times that it would happen in between me having a bout of mindfulness or a bout of deep breaths, and I realize that this is not that big of a deal, and
Mhm.
the world is gonna work it out in a way. Um, I sometimes I use my hand if I'm really stressed, and I trace my finger with my other hand, and I think about only that. So it's only 5 fingers. And if I have an interrupting thought, I have to start over. If you don't want
Okay.
to do that in public, another thing I used to do in my mind, anytime I would start to feel stress, because I am a high anxiety person, I would
Mhm.
count to 10 in my mind. And if I thought of anything else before I got to 10, I would start over. Right. So I'm getting like frustrated. I'm like, okay, I was on 5. Now I'm only on 30. I have to start over. And I got better at it. And
Wow.
yeah. And another very important thing is stress and excitement. They're controlled by the same neurotransmitter. So if you physically tell yourself when you're starting to get stressed, so you're feeling that rush of fight or flight, or you have anxiety, and just say, wow, I'm excited. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a cue to the people around me, and especially my spouse. If I say I'm excited, then he backs off, because that means like
Mhm.
my body is excited. I'm having like a visceral, you know, like, and cognitive, you know, you might start sweating. It could proliferate into
Yeah.
something where your body shuts down. So it's better to just say, you take a deep breath, I'm excited right now, and just take a moment, you know?
Yes. Um, we used to have, my life partner, when she was going through pre-med, uh, there was a lot of stress involved. A lot, especially preparing for MCATs
Yeah.
or stage 1, whatever it would be. There was a lot of stress involved. And I don't know where we took it from, but we used to say, I'm getting ready for action.
Yeah.
My body's getting ready for action, you know? And
Yeah.
that was a good way for us to put it into proportion, because as a very philosophical person, I always like to take us back to when we lived in caves, and to think of our computer, our brain, as something that was built for that era, and looking at it as, back then when you were stressed or whatever, you were getting ready for action. Probably there was some tiger outside showing you that it's hungry or something like that. And it does put it into proportions where, okay, this world is obviously an imaginative world, right?
Mhm.
I'm only imagining situations that might happen, and I'm getting ready for them.
Mhm. Yeah, and the interesting thing is there's some research on how we consolidate things in the
Mhm.
learning and memory aspect of our brain. So we really need that release of those glucocorticoids. I mean, too much of them is bad, but if you want to consolidate your experience, it comes along with that rush, of the epinephrine or the adrenaline or
Yes.
these other chemicals. And so I always wondered, well, why are we remembering the bad things? Why aren't we remembering these really good things when I was just as excited? I mean, you're going to probably remember the day you graduate or the day that you launched your business. You may not
Mhm.
know the number, but you remember the feeling. And so if we start to talk to ourselves differently, once we realize it's the same chemical, you can either remember the bad stress or the good stress. And so I think it's just somewhere in there. And when I also started being more accepting of the things that I cannot control through mindfulness, it got a lot easier.
Yeah, you remind me. It's not really the same subject, but you probably know what I'm talking about better than I do. I mentioned it in the last podcast that there was a research where people were, the researchers let the subject stimulate different parts of the brain. They could choose which part of the brain, and the most popular, feeling that was stimulated was mild irritation, because apparently that is where we are able to remember the most or have the most epiphanies or whatever when you're mildly irritated, and it was a more popular sensation being stimulated even than orgasm.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I think I was reading something earlier that the the things that you can do for your health, I was thinking that's so profound because even like meditation and mindfulness is just up there right above sex. So I
Yeah,
mean that's what most people are geared to. But if you think about it, that's the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system working at the same time.
hmm.
And I think maybe if we spend time with ourselves in mindfulness and thinking, then we're able to see where these two things come together.
So, let's assume a person is still, their real goal is, I want to look my best.
Mm-hmm.
How can we convince them to be compassionate? Why should they be compassionate? Or why should they be mindful? What is the added benefit of compassion to a person? What does it do to us, even on a neurological level? But what happens to us when we're compassionate, or when we display compassion?
Well, I think that when we're good to ourselves and we are practicing self compassion, then we're exuding that. We feel better. So I think, we also perceive things in a different way. I mean, when
Mhm.
when our health is good and we take care of ourselves, right, your body's going to naturally detox. When you sleep, it's going to naturally detox. And because of that, we have that somewhat of like the mirror neuron effect,
Yeah,
or we're treating ourselves good. So why would I treat someone else bad? And
yeah.
that really starts, again, it just starts with how you treat yourself.
That's very interesting. The more I found out that in stages in my life where I did not speak to myself as well, or I did not appreciate myself as much, I did not appreciate my life partner as much, and obviously other people who are not as close to me. But I really saw a mirror effect there. That the more I liked myself, the more I was speaking to myself positively, the more I saw the positive in others, which,
Yep. Yeah.
you
I
know,
agree with that. And also I've noticed whenever I say, okay, I'm going to speak nicer to myself, I notice when other people talk to themselves poorly. And so that in itself is that the compassionate action. Then you want to
Mhm.
do something to tell them, hey, don't be so tough on yourself.
Mhm.
Like, hey, everything's going to be okay. You know, hey, let's
Mhm.
just go take a breath or get you some water. It's very simple things, I feel like. Now, but with the biohacking, I love that concept because a lot of times it's simple things that we forget that we
Yes.
do to be
Yes.
better.
I really like, I don't know if you heard about Dave Asprey. Dave Asprey is like one of the, founders of even the word biohacking, but definitely the field.
Hmm.
And what Dave describes biohacking as, which I like, is affecting or the art and science of changing the environment either within ourselves or around us to better control our own biology. And I think obviously it has so many facets, but it does start with the environment up here. That
Yeah.
is literally the source of any other decision you're going to make. And the higher you're going to hold yourself, the higher esteem you're going to hold yourself, the better decisions you're going to make for yourself and for the world. It even
Mhm.
reminds me, yeah, so Anthony Robbins talks about it a little bit. You have
Right.
like six pillars of things that you want to that people need, six human needs, and you won't be able to be happy without giving and being compassionate. That's a component of happiness.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, and so to us as a company, again, it would be amazing, and we are working on it. If part of the product experience would be the mindfulness of understanding that you're taking care of yourself, that would be a moment that you're really taking for yourself when you're applying a cream, when you're washing your face, when you're looking in the mirror.
Yep.
We would love it to be an anchor during the day where you look yourself in the eyes and you're saying, I'm taking care of myself right now. I'm doing something that's good for me. And I feel like it's a self-feeding loop.
Yeah, I agree. When you say the word anchor, it brings me into when people use mindfulness and they say, you always have this anchor you can come back to. A lot of times it's your breath that
Hmm.
brings you into this moment. So we're just like, okay, I'm here right now. And you feel different after you do that. Another anchor of mine is to massage here.
Okay.
Sometimes when I'm putting on my skin cream, I go like this. And as
Mhm.
I do it, I just think about, like my lymph system,
Yeah.
my lymphatic system, I'm
Yes.
feeling how that feels so good to take care of myself and activate that system. So I'm just thinking loving kindness thoughts to myself, and that now it's just it happens. I mean, I say I'm thinking loving kindness. I'm not saying in my mind, I love you, Misty, I love you, but I'm taking a moment to instead of putting my cream on like this, you got to pat it in so it gets in there. Otherwise, you're just wasting expensive product. And when I
Just
find a
moving
good
it
cream,
around.
yeah, I'm like, I'm going to use this. So I always, take the time to anchor. And so this has become an anchor for me. It's very calming to
That's an
touch there.
amazing idea. I'm gonna try it.
Yeah. And also here, you take your
Uh-huh.
opposite hand and you can massage there, because really we should also be taking care of our neck
Yes,
and our décolleté. That's a very important area, I feel like.
it
So,
is. It is, and it is an area that um, I'm a big believer in micro decisions. You have accumulated micro decisions, and what we see a lot in people's neck, chest, um, around the ears, actually around here as well, hands, is that these areas, obviously 9 out of 10 times a person is going to apply the cream there, but because 1 out of 10 times they're not going to, or they're not going to, address it in the same way they're going to address their face, that 1 out of 10 time accumulates. And that
yeah,
means that's like, that's around 30 times a year that you are going to neglect that
right.
area. And that would translate over the years when we are in our 30s, 40s, 50s, that accumulates, buddy. So
Yeah,
you
I agree. I remember asking someone when I was doing runway, she was kind of like our house mom, that would make sure that we looked right before we went on the down the runway, and that, our skirt was on the right way or whatever. I said, "What would you recommend for an anti-aging tip?" Because I had always been kind of obsessed with this. I mean, I was into, even when I was into herbalism, I was into plants because I wanted to know how they could heal us. I loved foraging for different plants and leaves. And so, anyway, she told me the most important thing you can do is moisturize. And I'm like, oh, I got that because my mom, when I was younger, would always use cocoa butter and just put it all over her body every time
uh-huh.
after the shower. So, as soon as I'm like 11 and up, I put lotion on every time after I shower. And I can tell the difference in my skin compared to other people my age that just didn't moisturize. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone. I'm just saying I can see the results and vice versa. But also, I think I'm one of those people that wasn't paying enough attention to my neck. And so I've
Mhm.
started doing that in the last few years, and I can see a difference already. So it's never too late to start. The main thing is that we're talking about, and that someone starts somewhere. And I think
Correct,
that's compassionate in itself. You just
correct,
start somewhere.
correct. And obviously, never mind where a person is right now in their skin journey. They definitely do not want to look worse tomorrow.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
true. Yeah, I
does
like that.
not matter how you look right now. Look at yourself in the mirror. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, first of all, let's practice some loving kindness.
Mm-hmm.
But you definitely don't want to hate yourself more tomorrow. Let's say
I
it like
agree with that. Yeah. And I like how you say skin journey, because that's exactly what it is. I mean, the things that I used 10 years ago, 15 years ago are not what I use now. At one
Mhm.
point, I started to think, the more I got into science, I'm like, what is the stuff I'm putting on my face? And
Yeah.
so I stopped altogether. And it wasn't because I couldn't pronounce the words. I mean, I worked at a medical spa, so I
Mhm.
understand, science, like science and molecules versus just
Actually,
junk.
actually, because you are involved in Stanford with Stanford, there is a professor in Stanford. He's amazing. His name is Ryan Spitler,
Hmm.
and I remember meeting him around a decade ago when he was one of the first people writing about light therapy or infrared light therapy.
Yes.
Really ridiculed, 10, 15 years ago. Really was not taken seriously, and through through the time, this was an amazing journey to view him and his claims really brought into light, and people really adopting them, where now you can buy any, you look like Magneto, you can buy any mask and put it on
Right.
your face and look red for a while, which is great. But definitely technology advances, and we do need to keep our finger on the pulse,
Yep.
see what would give us the best service right now. And of course, you don't know, not everybody should go to med school just because they want to know what's the best skincare to use. But if you do, if you do make sure you love the process, love your skin, think about what's the best for it, and go on a journey and try to find what works for you.
Yeah.
It's also
Yep.
going, yeah, it's going to be more enjoyable for you, and it's
Hmm.
also going to yield better results.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the things I use then and now are completely different. And I would say I use a lot of different mechanisms now. Before, it used to be your face wash and your cleanser and the makeup. And
Yeah.
so it takes me a while, but I'm like, okay, this is the product I will put on my face. And then this is like, I'll do micro needling, or I'll do,
Mhm.
the light therapy. And there's there's a lot of more options now. And
Correct.
it doesn't just have to be something that you rub on.
Hmm. Yeah. We so in the anti-aging research community, People are doing all sorts of things to look younger. Anywhere from taking diabetes medications like metformin or acarbose, which is not even on the market yet, not in the market anymore, to rapamycin, which is a very radical step, to what we do, which is develop, cutting edge molecules for skincare. So this field definitely is in its infancy. The anti-aging field is,
Well, considering that neuroscience really just came about so strong in the last 20 years,
yeah,
that's completely understandable. And I think for you as a company, the best thing and what I do as a company is we keep growing.
yes,
The main thing is you're doing the research and you're growing. You're on your own journey to bring your customer the best product. You're not just like, okay, well, this is what worked 20 years ago and it's the best product, and your product never changes, because that's not true. Everything is changing. Our environment, the level of toxins are changing, the amount of
correct.
screen time we're getting is through the roof.
Yes, yes. Even
So
in the last few years, we even discovered the blue light from your screen that damages your DNA and your skin. That is a new discovery, newish discovery, which people should address and apply sunscreen even if they're in front of their computer, etc., etc., etc. And what you really see in the beauty industry, which to me is obvious, it's understandable, but I don't like it so much, is the fact that any company that needs to be profitable is going through a quarterly or a yearly loop, right? They look at themselves, they say, okay, at the end of the year, we have to make profit. And the problem with that is that you normally are targeting what people are aware that works right now. You're targeting current trends. So you're seeing CBD and turmeric products right now because that is what's popular right now. It doesn't mean that's the
I was
best.
putting I was putting turmeric paste under my eyes years ago, just because
Yes,
I studied plants, and I thought I ordered all these bulk herbs, and I actually did my own skincare for a while because I was so
wow,
fed up, and I would do my own experiments on myself. And I'm like, oh,
wow,
look, when I use the turmeric for my dark circles, it works, but this is, people thought I was crazy then. And
yes,
maybe it just only worked for a day. I don't know the science behind it. I know it's anti-inflammatory, but I mean, I totally agree. It's trends.
yes. So what we were trying to do obviously is find out what works the best and then trying to make it trendy, which is a task.
It is a
Um,
task. There's timing with everything for sure.
co-
And it sounds like you're more science-based. Being in the
correct,
science world is difficult because one, we want to make it sound cool to people, and we want them to understand, because if people don't understand science, they don't like it. And people don't
correct,
like what they don't know.
correct. And we are starting to see, so both, I don't know if you know a smaller company called Caudalie. It's a French company.
Uh-huh.
Both of them and Estee Lauder have published that they are research and developing products in the same field we are, so activating sirtuins, which are the anti-aging genes. And obviously, when they're going to come up with their products on the market, that's going to be it's going to
Yep.
be easier to explain because you could reference to other companies. And
Mhm.
right now, we are kind of the only one in that field.
That's great.
And the hope is that uh, we're going to have enough disciples, enough
Yep.
believers when they launch their products they would reference us when they want to
That would be
explain
nice.
something. That would
Yeah.
be amazing.
Yeah.
um, but obviously the most important is creating a big change in people's skin regardless. We do believe that through word of mouth, through people loving our products, that is the most authentic way to succeed. And the most, I'm not saying karma in a spiritual way, but in a physical way, improving your karma, improving the way that you do business, you really look at the end customer and you really want the best for them. So, Misty, kind of to sum it all up and to get your 2 cents about self-care and about beauty and kind of tying them together, what do you do on a daily basis as far as self-care, can be beauty or otherwise, also inside and outside? You did give us the hand technique and the counting to 10, but what is your daily habits that you're looking at doing every day?
The daily habits that I'm doing right now and I'm loving is I'm taking krill oil.
Okay.
First thing, I'm taking that and my zinc first thing in the morning, and my energy is through the roof.
Do you take quercetin with that, with zinc?
Do I take what?
Quercetin?
No, I don't think so. Well, I don't know what supplement I'm taking right now. Should I be taking that with it?
Yes, yes. Zinc has a difficulty getting into the cell if it's not accompanied by something like quercetin.
A lot of times with my supplements, because I know they're so expensive, I'll try to get the liposomal, like with vitamin C and things like that. I don't spend a lot on my supplements, but I will say the fish oil is awesome. I usually opt actually for IVs.
Okay.
So I just put it straight into my veins. Like, let's
Mhm.
go for this. Let's do this.
Mhm.
Get it where it needs to go. I'd rather pay 150 for that than, spend it all on supplements.
Have you
And
ever
then
done an, sorry,
go ahead.
have you ever done an NAD IV?
Yeah, I think so. I tried to order NAD plus from a company that you take orally, and I just thought, I appreciate the science behind the company. I mean, it was expensive. I'm sure it was a great molecule, but I'm like, is my body really utilizing this?
So NAD is problematic, and that's why we made skincare that has it. Two things are happening. If you're just taking NAD in and on its own, which is kind of the energy currency for your
Mhm.
cells, it's not that the skin that your body knows what to do with it when it's outside of your cell. So it's going to break it down to something that it does understand, which is niacin, which is B3. And really what you're looking at is you're taking inexpensive B3 because your body's going to turn it into B3,
Mhm.
circulate it throughout your body. Some of it's going to turn back into NAD, which is great, but most of it you're really taking B3. So an entire $250 million industry that exists right now is NAD precursors, which
Mhm.
are molecules that are more efficient in turning into NAD
Mhm.
in the body. And from research, we see that about, so, 90% of it, of the NAD is staying in your liver. So your liver really enjoys it, and the rest of the body gets the scraps. And the whole premise of the skincare that we made to begin with was delivering it directly where we would want it. So we have a few very specific nano-sized, encapsulated NAD precursors,
Mhm.
and when you apply them directly on the skin, they then, so a precursor is one step before, just
Mhm. To build it so your
exactly. So
cell can use it.
that's the Lego pieces
Yeah.
needed to build NAD. So then your body takes these Lego pieces, which it does have direct highways going into the cell for those specific precursors. It delivers them into the cell, they turn into NAD, and everyone's happy.
Yeah.
And that is how we started. And then obviously your any kind of repair process in your cell, on your skin, in your body, looks at the amount. It's like us before we go to brunch, we look at our bank account and figure out if we can go to brunch or not. And we're not going to even bother going if we can't afford it. The same way, their repair mechanisms in our body, they're going to look before they start. They're going to look at the
That
amount
makes
of
sense.
yeah, they're going to look at the amount of NAD they have, and they're not. It's called the NAD plus minus dependent processes. They're not even going to start if they don't have enough NAD. So then, after our product that does have NAD, which is a nightly product, our day product has a patented version of resveratrol, um, something from a peptide that is very powerful in demanding your body to create collagen. So things
Yep.
that ask your body to repair itself. And now that it has enough NAD, now it can do it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's
And
a little bit.
no, I love that. And that's, I feel like, how you have to take it, because science is so, I mean, yeah, the way that something's metabolized in our stomach, it's going to be different than if we put it on our skin. And so you're doing all that work for everyone. I mean,
Exactly.
a lot of what you're saying sounds familiar to me, but you're the pro in this. And I absolutely adore that you're taking the time, with your company to figure out what is best for the skin,
Yeah.
because it is different to put it on your skin or to ingest it. I mean, it's liberated differently. Is it used? Is it not? You may have one precursor, but if you don't have the others. And I think that's why I got upset with the buying products that were so expensive, because the more I started to learn about science, or I'd be in class and I'm like, hold on, this doesn't make sense why I would be paying even for supplements, because all of them might only have 5%, that will work. So in regards to the D3 though, I've just been using the sun.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the most important. I think if someone can get out to the sun, they really should do it. For D3, I really try. I do take. Do you know the company Thorn?
Yes.
So I do take their D3K2 drops.
Yeah. Oh,
I
drop.
think, yeah, the drops. The reason I take the drops is because the only research showing overdosing on D3 was through drops. Because even if you take, 20,000 units of vitamin D3 in capsules, your body can't. It's not going to overdose. It's not going to use a lot of
Yeah,
it.
but, and then I wonder what else are you processing with the capsules too,
Yes, especially if you're taking that much. Yes. Um, so definitely.
So the sun is important. Obviously, water. I drink a ton of reverse osmosis water with the trace minerals added back into it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You have to, I mean, I think water is just so good for you. I don't know why.
Yes.
Why I
Yes.
have to fight
Definitely.
with people about water, but
And
water.
one thing I want to say, like last thing I want to say about water is when I was managing a chain of retail stores, that was a very high-paced job. Not only it was a high-paced job, it was a job where you had to go from one meeting to the next and had to, you were screaming at someone a second ago. Now you need to be super nice to someone else. And the trick that worked the best for me to reset my mind was cold water.
That's
Drinking
interesting.
cold water is the best mind reset I know.
Well, and I think there's something behind that, because a lot of therapists will suggest that you have cold water if you're feeling anxiety. So we might want to throw that into the stress
Yeah, yeah,
management
yeah.
category.
So,
Um,
Misty, let me ask you, what is the best way for people to kind of really give it a summary, and in case people wanna continue following you, getting more of your sage advice, maybe getting a service from you, what is the best way to follow you, to reach out to you? Yeah, where are you most active at?
I'm most active on Instagram at Misty
Mm-hmm,
Beautiful. It's
mm-hmm,
really simple, MISTY, beautiful. And that's where I'll share a lot. I mostly will share about my birds and
mm-hmm.
rescuing, and I will do my health hacks on there a lot, and lifestyle choices. And anything that I'm learning, I share that a lot in neuroscience because I think it's important. And I try to make it to where everybody will enjoy it and understand it.
I got it. Okay. So Instagram is the hub to start from.
Yeah. Yep.
So Misty, listen, I think we can go for hours because you're super interesting. And maybe we will do it again at some point.
I
We
would
will
love that.
revisit this conversation. For sure, we will send you some products to try, and we will.
I cannot wait. I've been using peptides a lot, and I'm so in love with the peptides. Also, I'd recommend to people using an enzyme or prebiotic and probiotics. I mean, I love also using those on my skin, so I'm excited to.
Great. I think you'll really like what we're doing.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Misty.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much. I enjoyed chatting with you. Let's do it again.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Bye.
All right. Take care.
Bye. Ciao.